On behalf of the commissioners and staff, I would like to welcome you to the May 12th, 2022 City of Roseville Planning Commission meeting. If you could at this time, please put all electronic devices on silent. Agendas are available at the end of the staff table. And if you plan to speak at tonight's meeting, please complete a blue speaker card and return it to the staff table. And as a reminder, Planning Commission meetings are broadcast live and replayed throughout the week on Consolidated Communications and Comcast. With that, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Lupe, could I please have a roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Brashears is absent, excused. Commissioner Caparuso? Here. Commissioner Covington? Here. Commissioner Hagen-Jost?
Here.
Commissioner Pryor is absent, excused. Vice Chair Martin?
Here.
And Chair Jensen.
Here. Commissioner Martin, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Lupe, could we please begin with staff introductions?
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. Lupe Nelson, Recording Secretary.
Good evening, Commissioners. Joe Speaker, Assistant City Attorney.
Good evening, Chair Jensen and Commissioners. Greg Bitter, Planning Manager.
Good evening, Chair Jensen, Commissioners. Derek Ogden, Senior Planner.
Thank you. So now we're at public comment. The public comment period is the time for anyone who would like to address the Commission on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. When addressing the Commission, please state your name for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the Commission on any item not on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public comment period, and we'll move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of routine items that may be approved under one motion as recommended in the staff reports. However, each item may be considered separately upon a request by the audience, the Planning Commission, or staff. Tonight's consent calendar consists of 2 items. Item 5.1, the minutes from the April 28th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting, and item 5.2, North Industrial Plan Area Parcel CO3, the Trails at Valley Oak Major Project Permit Stage 2 for 570 Roseville Parkway. For the record, that's file number PL220081. Is there anyone on the Commission or in the audience that would like to pull either of these items off the consent calendar for discussion? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion from the Commission to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve consent.
Second.
Commissioner Martin has made the motion and Commissioner Covington has seconded the motion. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Covington? Yes. Vice Chair Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Hagen-Jost?
Yes.
Commissioner Caparuso?
Yes.
And Chair Jensen.
Yes. The motion is approved. There is a 10-day appeal period for item 5.2. So next on the agenda is requests and presentations, but before I begin, I want to review the meeting procedures. First, we'll hear the staff presentation. Then we'll take questions from the Commission. Then I'll open up the public hearing and the applicant will make a presentation. Then I'll open up the public comment and the public will have an opportunity to speak. I'll then close the public comment and the applicant will be given an opportunity to provide a rebuttal. We'll close the public hearing. The Commission may ask additional questions, staff, and finally the Commission will consider the item and make a decision based on the information provided in the report from staff and the testimony presented during tonight's hearing. The first item is item 6.1. It's a request to recommend the City Council approve a specific plan amendment, approve an administrative permit, and a design review permit for 2300 Westbrook Boulevard. For the record, file number PL22-0019. And Derek, I think this is your item. Could we have your presentation?
Yes, thank you, Chair Jensen. Good evening, Commissioners. Again, my name is Derek Ogden. I'll be here presenting the Westbrook Storage project for you this evening. The project site is located on a 10-acre portion of parcel W60B in the West Roseville Specific Plan. A tentative subdivision map was recently approved to subdivide this parcel into 2 lots. The southern half of the site is the proposed project area. The city is in the process of purchasing the northern half, which is approximately 20 acres, with plans to develop it as part of a future sports complex on parcel W60A, which is to the north. The project site has a zoning designation of light industrial with a special area overlay and a land use designation of light industrial. Surrounding uses include vacant general industrial parcel to the east, Curry Creek open space to the south, and low-density residential uses across Westbrook Boulevard to the west. The Pleasant Grove wastewater treatment plant is also located to the northwest of the property. The special area overlay modifies the permitted uses for the industrial zone parcels in the West Roseville Specific Plan. Although the zoning ordinance allows on-site caretaker units in the M1 zone with approval of an administrative permit, the SA overlay in the West Roseville Plan prohibits this use type. This was due to the potential noise and odor impacts resulting from the Pleasant Grove wastewater treatment plant. The requested specific plan amendment will amend the permitted uses table in the West Roseville Plan to allow the caretaker's unit in an M1 zone with approval of an administrative permit. This would be consistent with the zoning ordinance standards. The administrative permit process allows staff the ability to impose conditions to ensure compatibility with surrounding uses, and given this, staff supports the specific plan amendment as proposed. The project will be developed in 2 phases. The site plan here shows the site at full build-out. The site is heavily encumbered by utility easements along the eastern portion of the site, which include existing overhead power lines. In addition, there are existing sewer and water lines within easements at the center of the property. No permanent structures are permitted within the easements, so given this, there will be RV parking along the eastern property line and in the center of the site, as you can see here in yellow. Phase 1 will construct a majority of the project, which includes the office and caretaker's unit, 6 self-storage buildings, and about 280 RV storage spaces. Phase 2 would eliminate some of the RV spaces to accommodate a 7th self-storage building for a total of approximately 200,000 square feet of enclosed buildings, as well as about 170 RV parking spaces. The RV spaces themselves will not be covered. They will be uncovered surface parking. The site's designed with storage buildings located around the perimeter of the site, and which includes the northern and southern property lines to help screen views into the facility and to avoid the easements we discussed just a moment ago. For security purposes, the site will be enclosed with an 8-foot tubular steel fence with a rolling gate at the front entrance. Access will be provided from a new 40-foot wide driveway on Westbrook Boulevard, and with the revised condition that we sent you earlier, I think it was yesterday we sent it to you, and it's included as on purple paper for you guys prior to the meeting, it will be consistent with city engineering standards. The primary entrance to the project, again, is along Westbrook Boulevard and consists of 2 storage buildings and an office and caretaker's unit. The storage building will have wall plane variation, as well as variation in roof parapet heights from 20 to 22 feet tall. The office and caretaker's unit will have the highest roof line at approximately 28 feet to make it more of a dominant feature, with overlapping building forms to create some interest. The building panels alternate between stucco and vertical metal ribbed siding with CMU wainscoting applied to the base of the building. Additional architectural elements include spandrel glass, metal awnings, and painted trim to enhance the views from Westbrook Boulevard. The primary color scheme is neutral earth tones with red used as an accent color for the metal awnings and parapet bands. The variation in colors and materials and in the wall planes will help to break up the building facade. The project also includes landscaping around the perimeter of the site with the exception of the eastern property line, and this is due to the utility constraints along that same property line. Consistent with the Roseville Specific Plan, a 50-foot landscape corridor is provided along the frontage on Westbrook Boulevard. The landscape corridor will have a mix of shade and accent trees and will be compatible with the existing landscaping in the area. To the north, the project includes a 5-foot landscape buffer, which consists of a mix of trees and shrubs. And this was reviewed by our Parks Department, given the regional soccer complex being proposed to the north. A minimum of 10-foot landscape buffer will be provided on the south, adjacent to the open space preserve. Overall, the landscape design is consistent with the city's design guidelines, as well as the water efficient landscape ordinance. The caretaker's unit is approximately 1,800 square feet and will be located on the 2nd floor of the office building. Having an on-site caretaker will ensure the site is secure and monitored outside of normal business hours. The caretaker's unit is located as close as possible to the project entrance, which is consistent with our zoning ordinance. In addition, the project provides 2 required parking spaces for the caretaker, which will be located in a garage. Lastly, the unit's proximity to Pleasant Grove wastewater treatment plant will not result in significant impacts related to noise or odor. Early notification of the project was provided on the Roseville Coalition of Neighborhood Associations website, RCONA, and the public hearing notice was also mailed to all property owners within 300 feet of the site and published in the Press Tribune as well as on the RCONA website. No public comments to date have been received. And consistent with CEQA requirements, an initial study leading to a negative declaration was prepared, which determined the project would not have a significant environmental impact. The document was posted for a 20-day public review period, and no comments on this document was received. In conclusion, staff finds the project allows a beneficial use of the site. The project is consistent with the goals, policies, and standards of our zoning ordinance, general plan, West Roseville specific plan, as well as the community design guidelines, and all the required findings of approval can be made for this project. Staff recommends the Planning Commission take the actions listed in the staff report and on the current slide here, and that would conclude my presentation.
Thank you, Derek. Commissioners, are there any questions of staff at this time? And we'll start at this end to make sure I don't miss anyone this time. No questions. With that, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing, and I'd invite the project representative to come forward and address the commission on this item.
Good evening. My name is Cole Heron, part of the applicant team. First, I'd like to thank the staff, specifically Kenny. I know she's not here this evening, but she's been very helpful to work with throughout this process, as well as Derek and Greg. I know we work with them. We've done work in Roseville before. I think that we build a good product. We do accept the conditions of approval as written. If there are any questions from the public, I also have Ryan O'Keefe from West Park, as well as our civil engineer, Brittany, that can answer any questions if there may be any. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions of the applicant before we move forward? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and open then the public comment period. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward and address the commission on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public comment period, and I'll go ahead and close the public hearing as well. Is there any additional questions or comments from the commission for staff? Okay, seeing none, I would look for the commission for a motion.
Move to adopt the Westbrook Storage Initial Study negative deck. Recommend the City Council adopt a resolution approving the specific plan amendment, adopt the 4 findings of fact, and approve the design review permit subject to, that's where we're at 85, right? Now?
Revision of 26.
Yeah, it was just a revised condition number 28, so same number of conditions.
Oh, it was revised. We got it. So 84, conditions of approval, and adopt the 3 findings of fact, and approve the administrative permit subject to 4 conditions of approval.
Commissioner Caparuso's made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Hagan-Joseph's second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Covington?
Yes.
Commissioner Caparuso?
Yes.
Commissioner Hagan-Jose?
Yes.
And Chair Jensen?
Yes. The motion is approved, and there is a 10-day appeal period for the item. Okay, we'll move on to item 6.2. It's a request to approve a design review permit for 12 Medical Plaza. For the record, it's file number PL 22-0024. And Scarlett, could we have your presentation, please?
They're right there.
Gave them to him already.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Chair Jensen and Commissioners. My name is Scarlett Marr, and I'm here this evening to present to you all the Sutter Parking Garage Expansion Project. The Sutter Roseville Medical Campus is approximately 49 acres in size and is located within the Northeast Roseville Specific Plan. The project site we're reviewing this evening is the parking garage expansion and is approximately 0.94 acres in size and is located at 12 Medical Plaza as illustrated in the red polygon on the screen. Now you'll notice there is a second red polygon also illustrated on the screen. The second polygon on the screen is the location of the future medical office building number 7. Due to construction timing, the applicant has elected to submit the parking garage first with the MOB 7 trailing behind. The idea was to have a parking garage first underway or at least partially completed before the medical office building broke ground. Staff proposes to bring the medical office building application to you all later this summer. Because the projects are reliant on one another, staff produced a combined environmental document that resulted in an initial study that led to a negative declaration. Further comments regarding this analysis will be discussed in my presentation later. So the project site, which is the Sutter parking garage expansion, has a land use designation of Planned Development for Medical Campus PD 457 and has a general plan land use designation of Business Professional. The application before you tonight is a request for a design review permit to allow the development of a new parking garage totaling in 192,000 square feet in size. The purpose of expanding the parking structure is to support the existing campus as well as the future medical office building, which will be presented, like I mentioned, later this summer. The parking garage expansion would create an additional 551 parking stalls for the entire Sutter Roseville Medical Center. The proposed parking garage expansion would have an overall height of approximately 75 feet, which would result in one floor taller than the existing 5-story parking garage for a total of 6 stories. Because of the grade changes where the garage is proposed, the first floor of the garage will be partially below the elevation of Medical Plaza and the existing garage. However, the expansion will connect both garages at each level. Vehicular access to the new garage would be along the eastern portion of the building, as well as the existing entrance on the northern side of the building off of Medical Plaza. Lastly, architectural and design of the new parking garage would emulate the existing garage while providing the same finishes and will match the architectural language of the existing garage in detail and the same element as well. Early notification of the project was posted on the Roseville Coalition of Neighborhood Association website, as well as the applicant held a neighborhood meeting on April 5th where they answered questions from the audience regarding the view sheds of the proposed garage and the future medical office building. The public hearing notice for the project was mailed out to property owners within 300 feet of the project site, as well as published in the Roseville Press Tribune and on the RCONA website again. As mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, because both the parking garage and the medical office building are reliant on one of each other, staff analyzed both projects into one CEQA document. Consistent with the California Environmental Quality Act requirement, an initial study leading to a negative declaration was prepared for the projects. The result of the initial study and the negative declaration determined the project would not have a significant effect on the environment. The initial study and the neg deck were published for a 20-day public review period where no comments were received. However, yesterday evening, the city did receive a letter from the Lozay-Dury law firm challenging the project's initial study and negative declaration. Staff reviewed said letter and prepared a memo that was distributed to you all just a little bit before this meeting. Sorry. So the memo, going over the memo, our responses. So we reviewed the memo and provided responses to the letter and were outlined in the memo. But to summarize the memo, we did inadvertently include a condition of approval in the staff report that is actually not relevant to the project, and we request that it be removed from the staff report. That is condition of approval number 3 for the design review permit. The letter also alleges that the indoor air quality will be affected by significant formaldehyde emissions, but the cited studies are based on an older residential construction standards that do not accurately reflect the project. The letter also alleges we didn't address the mechanical equipment noise or construction noise, but we are confident that we did, given that the mechanical equipment from the existing medical office building 4, which is actually closer to the multifamily residential project to the north, has not resulted in any significant noise impacts. And the construction here is similar to the construction that occurs throughout the city's urban environment without causing significant impacts. Now, for the air quality, we did update our modeling for the project to correct an error, but still found that that the impacts were below the significant thresholds. For the greenhouse gases, the city's analysis was appropriate because the impacts of full build-out of the Sutter Hospital campus was included in the general plan update EIR. So pursuant to the tiering of provisions of the CEQA, no further analysis is required. And finally, the last bullet point of the memo, the letter asserts that we must include an analysis of renewable energy features, but the court case which they cited in the letter actually relies on or for an environmental impact report, which is not consistent with what we analyze the project under, which is a negative declaration. Therefore, based on our responses and updates to the staff report and Exhibit A, staff believes the initial study negative declaration is consistent with the California Environmental Quality Act requirements, and no further review is necessary. Next slide, please. Thank you. In conclusion, staff finds the project does allow a beneficial use of the site, and the project is consistent with all applicable goals, policies, and standards of the zoning ordinance, the general plan, the Northeast Roseville Specific Plan, and the community design guidelines. And the required findings of approval can be made for the project as well. Therefore, staff recommends the Planning Commission adopt the initial study and negative declaration, adopt the required findings of fact, and approve the design review permit subject to the 63 recommended conditions of approval. 62 recommended conditions of approval because we are requesting to remove one. And that does conclude my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Scarlett, and thank you to staff for pulling responses to the letter together so quickly for us this evening. Commissioners, are there any questions of staff at this time? We'll start at this end, Justin.
Yeah, I just have one, Scarlett. Thank you for your presentation. I know that you were scrambling. Did Sutter weigh in on this as well, and or are they in support of your memo and the recommended moving forward?
Yes, staff did provide the memo to Sutter, and they agree and we're comfortable with moving forward with the project today.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Not for me, no.
Okay.
I'm just trying to
Commissioner
get through
Martin?
it.
No questions.
Any questions?
Point.
Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing and invite the project applicant for the item to come forward and address the commission. I think Dan Conwell is here.
Good evening, City of Roseville Planning Commission and staff. My name is Dan Conwell. I am the Director of Planning, Architecture, and Design for Sutter Health. My team's role is to support the early planning and approval of all major capital projects within the Sutter Health not-for-profit network of acute care hospitals and ambulatory care facilities. I am here tonight with introductory remarks on behalf of the project developer, as well as Sutter Roseville Medical Center and the Sutter Medical Foundation. Tonight we are requesting Planning Commission consideration of the design review of the Phase 2 of the parking structure at 12 Medical Plaza, as well as the negative environmental declaration for that garage expansion and the new 7 Medical Plaza medical office building, which will be brought forward for design review approval in the coming weeks. With me tonight is the developer's architectural partner, Dreyfus and Blackford Architects, represented by architects Sarah Bergman and Tony Amato. Tony and Sarah, in turn, are representing that third-party entity that will be designing and building the project for Sutter Roseville Medical Center. In addition to Dreyfus and Blackford Architects, the other main members of that team are the developer, Separovich Domich Real Estate Development, and the construction team led by WFC Builders. It has been my privilege to have been associated with healthcare design in Roseville, starting with support for the original Roseville Community Hospital in 1989. Over the past 22 years, I have led the planning and development of the current Sutter Roseville Medical Center campus. This association has also included a collaborative relationship with the City of Roseville, and we are greatly appreciative of the support we've received from staff and elected officials over these many years. This partnership has allowed Sutter Roseville Medical Center to continue to expand our range of services to become a regional medical center, providing advanced services including trauma and stroke center designation, cardiac services, newborn intensive care, acute rehabilitation services, and cancer care, in addition to many other outpatient services and physician offices. Many of the project team members, including Sarah, the developer and the contractor, are also no strangers to the campus, having developed on behalf of Sutter Roseville Medical Center and the Sutter Medical Foundation medical office buildings at 2 and 8 Medical Plaza Drive, as well as the Phase 1 of the 12 Medical Plaza parking structure. This project is the latest step in the continuation of planned growth for the Sutter Roseville campus to meet the growing needs for healthcare within the region. This process started with the land acquisition and environmental processing in the 1990s that paved the way for the original 170-bed hospital and first medical office building. In the early 2000s, a second medical office building and an ambulatory surgery center were added to the campus, as well as an expansion to the hospital's emergency department. In 2006, the hospital's long-range campus master plan was updated, and that update informed the conditional use permit approval for an ultimate campus build-out of 1.1 million square feet of healthcare facilities to serve the growing needs of Roseville, Placer County, and the greater Sacramento Valley Sierra region. There have been multiple expansions to the campus over the 16 years since that approval. To date, the hospital has expanded to 382 licensed beds and has one of the largest and busiest emergency departments in the region with 68 treatment stations. We also have vacant space in the hospital that will house an additional 37 licensed beds and 5 operating rooms in the coming year. The current approval before you will provide the outpatient support to integrate with those added inpatient services. The expansion of the 12 Medical Plaza parking garage will provide parking to support the future 7 Medical Plaza medical office building, as well as providing additional parking capacity to the campus. The architectural character of the garage expansion will be consistent with the existing parking structure and the overall campus aesthetic. We are excited about our upcoming submittal of the 7 Medical Plaza medical office building, as that will be the new home for our recently created graduate medical education program, which will bring future physicians to the campus to complete their residencies in a variety of healthcare specialties. As part of that graduate program, earlier this month, Sutter Roseville received accreditation for an emergency medicine residency program to begin next year. Additionally, the office building will house specialty clinics of the Sutter Medical Foundation, such as expanded cardiac and bariatrics programs. The addition will further enhance the talent and breadth of care that Sutter Health will provide to the community. I thank the Planning Commission for their consideration of this important project in the continued growth of healthcare services within the community. The Phase 2 expansion of the parking structure and the new medical office building will further advance Sutter Health's key results of providing safe, personal, affordable, and accessible health care to the communities we serve. I welcome any questions you may have for our team.
Commissioners, are there any questions of Mr. Conwell at this time? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
With that, I'll go ahead and open the public comment period. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward and address the commission on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public comment period, and I'll close the public hearing. Commissioner, is there any further discussion?
So I've got a couple of things that I just wanted to say in a question or a question about the report that we just got. But I want to say thank you to Sutter for, as someone who in the course of my pastoral duties has to go to the hospital on a fairly regular basis, to recognize that there are parking issues and to provide additional spaces because it has been a problem and it continues to be a problem. And I want to thank you for working to do that. And as this community grows, to provide the additional medical services that you just discussed, I think is absolutely vital for this community. So thank you. I have two things about the memo. The first is on the page, the last page, the last assertion. It says the project did consider renewable energy alternatives. Should that read did not? I think that's the assertion that was made in the letter?
Oh. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. And I realized that you guys were working hard all day long on responding to this, so anyways. But then the other thing that I wanted to just ask so that it's kind of on the record, not just in this memo, there was an assertion made that some of the documents were not available. And I just want to have you guys indicate that, if I was wanting to know about this project and I walked into the public office, I would be able to get all of the documents that were referenced in here, correct?
I'll answer that. That is correct. If you came into our public counter, all of the documents referenced would be available. I think even in our response, we talked about several of the documents are available on the city's website. There are other environmental documents, well, all past environmental documents for projects that haven't been completed are available in hard copy at our counter, and we can make those available, and we can make copies if we had to. In this instance, nobody approached us and asked for any of these records.
I mean, it requires somebody to have enough time to come in and actually get what they want to reference.
Or they could contact us ahead of time and we could scan
get
the
what you-
document.
Yeah,
and-
yeah. I just wanted to have that out there.
They are available.
Is there any other questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, I'd look to the commission for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the Sutter parking garage expansion and Sutter MOB 7 negative deck, and that we adopt the 4 findings of fact and approve the design review permit 12 Medical Plaza NERSP PCL 25 Sutter parking garage, subject to the 62, not 63, because item or condition number 3 has been removed. Conditions of approval.
Yeah.
Mr. Martin's made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Covington's made a second. We have a roll call.
Yes, Commissioner Caparuso.
Yes.
Commissioner Hagan-Joes.
Yes.
Vice Chair Martin.
Yes.
Commissioner Covington.
Yes.
And Chair Jensen.
Yes. So the motion is approved, and there is a 10-day appeal period for the item. Staff, thank you again for pulling that information together for us so quickly. Appreciate that. Okay, item 6.3 is a request that the Planning Commission recommend the City Council amend portions of Title 19 of Zoning Ordinance of the Roseville Municipal Code. For the record, it's file number PL 21-0318. And Scarlett, again, could we have your presentation?
Yes, good evening, Chair Jensen and Commissioners. I'm here this evening to present to you the zoning ordinance updates for 2022. For purposes of efficiency, staff will be presenting the proposed zoning ordinance changes in 3 sections, the first being clarifying amendments. A large portion of the zoning ordinance updates are related to resolving discrepancies and/or adding clarity associated with code sections like the review of loading areas, the fast food restaurant parking requirement, fixing a typo, etc. These topics, which staff believes are straightforward in nature, will not be discussed here this evening, but rather are outlined in your staff report as well as the exhibit. The main focus here that I wanted to bring forward to you are 3, are the patio covers, setbacks, the multifamily housing permitted in specific commercial zones, and the design review for compact residential development. So staff proposes to update the patio covers section of the zoning ordinance to clarify the patio covers over 7 feet in height constructed concurrently with the main residence would be considered a part of the primary structure. Making this change to the zoning ordinance would clarify any questions related on how we determine the setbacks for patio covers constructed with the main residence at the same time. So the second item on the list, like I mentioned, is the commercial zone properties allowing multifamily housing. Currently, the zoning ordinance, during the housing element review process, staff was approached by a group of interested individuals to allow multifamily housing within the commercial zone properties, specifically the neighborhood commercial zone and the community commercial zone. Currently, the zoning ordinance requires that all multifamily development in any of these zones procure a conditional use permit. To facilitate the construction of more housing on these nonprofit properties, staff proposes to revise the zoning ordinance to allow these organizations to construct housing via an administrative permit. The AP review process would allow staff to look at the project comprehensively and ensure that all public facilities, as well as necessary improvements for the construction of the multifamily, would be permitted and allowed at the development on these properties. And the last section is the design review for compact residential development. As you see before you, there is a memo requesting to make changes to the staff report as well as the exhibits. And it's a minor change. And this is specifically to just the language where small and large, just the language to the DERS, design review permit. So the proposed language is to add the section of the code to allow properties within an MDR land use to have an existing single-family dwelling unit to allow to add or remodel their property with another unit without having to apply for a DERS application. Now, the added language which we outlined in the memorandum before you states that properties which are proposed to be developed that are associated with the request for a subdivision would not be exempt from the review via a design review permit application, DERS application. The intent of the DERS update would be to streamline the review process for properties in the infill area which already have an existing dwelling unit and want to add or expand onto their property. The second portion of the modifications to the zoning ordinance are related to new legislative changes. Several of the amendments related to the legislative changes would not substantially change the content of the zoning ordinance, but rather bring those code sections into compliance with the legislation. Additionally, there are some assembly bills that require us to be more lenient, but not less restrictive. For example, removing the parking requirement for emergency shelters, allowing transitional and supportive housing by right where multifamily and mixed uses are permitted, and allowing large family daycare homes by right and not impose a business license. Once again, all these minor proposed changes, once again, are outlined in the staff report as well as the exhibit. Now, as required by Assembly Bill 101, the city does propose to create a new definition for low barrier navigation centers. These would allow by right in zoning districts where multifamily are permitted. Low barrier navigation centers provides temporary room and board to homeless individuals while case managers work to connect them with health services, permanent housing, or shelter. Similar to the DERS, as mentioned before, the memo before you also outlines a minor change to Exhibit A related to the small and large long-term care facilities. The proposed changes would clearly define what a small and large long-term care facility entails. The difference between the two is that large long-term care facilities would allow for more than 6 beds for persons who are terminally ill or severely disabled allowed in any residential zone, with the issuance of an administrative permit. These changes would be consistent with the State of California Health and Safety Code, Section 126.16. And the last section that we propose to amend is related to the housing element, specifically Program 28 and 31. Consistent with Housing Element Program 28, we propose to change the approval process for large community care facilities from a use permit to an administrative permit in all residential zones. And consistent with the Housing Element Program 31, employee housing for 6 or fewer people would be permitted as a use by right in all residential zoning districts as well. The project was noticed, was posted on the Roseville Coalition Neighborhood Association website, and to date, we did not receive any comments. Because the zoning ordinance updates are policy and procedure-making activities, and the California Environmental Quality Act only applies to projects which have the potential to cause a significant effect on the environment, we believe the project does not have an effect on the environment, and the project is therefore not subject to CEQA. In conclusion, the proposed changes will improve business operations by improving clarity and the intent of the existing regulations, and bring the city's regulations into consistency with enacted state law and the city's adopted general plan housing element. Therefore, staff recommends the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council to adopt the 2 findings of fact and approve the ordinance amendments to Title 19 of the Roseville Municipal Code. And I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Scarlett. Commissioners, are there any questions at this time? We'll start at this end. Mr. Covington? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing and the public comment period and look to see if there's anyone in the audience that would like to address the commission on this item. And seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public comment period, and I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Is there any additional questions or comments from the commission before we take an action on this? Okay, seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
Make a motion to recommend the City Council adopt the 2 findings of fact and approve the ordinance amendments to Title 19 of the Roseville Municipal Code.
Can I ask, that includes the changes on the,
Including the changes on
page,
the
I guess,
memo.
on- Thank you.
The salmon sheet.
Okay, Commissioner Covington made a motion, and
Second, yeah.
Commissioner Caparuso seconded the motion. We could have a roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Hagan-Jost.
Yes.
Commissioner Caparuso. Commissioner Covington. Vice Chair Martin. And Chair Jensen.
Yes, so the motion is approved, and this will go to the council. Do we know when?
We're going for.
Are we targeting July
July.
6th-ish? Sometime, yeah, early July.
Okay. Okay, moving on to item 6.4, it's a request the Planning Commission recommend the City Council adopt a resolution approving the policy document guidelines for specific plan amendments affecting or proposing residential land use. For the record, file number PL 22-0037. And Lauren, could we have your presentation, please?
Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. We'll wait for it. So my name is Lauren Hawker, Senior Planner, and I'm here to talk to you about the land use policy you just referenced. So the policy before you tonight implements a program within the city's adopted housing element, which was adopted in August of 2020. And as we've talked with you about a number of times when we did the land inventory for the housing element, we found that we had a lower income deficit of 1,791 units. Because density is used as a proxy for affordability in housing elements, that means we need 1,791 more units of high-density residential land units or capacity. We were required by housing element law to adopt a rezone program to identify the strategies we were going to use to make up that deficit. So our rezone program included 4 strategies listed on the slide: the commercial corridors, infill intensification, opportunity sites, and this land use policy. And before I talk about the land use policy, I want to just summarize the other strategies because it's really important to understand that our rezone program was designed to ensure it doesn't unfairly burden any one area of the city or one stakeholder group, and that this deficit makeup is fairly distributed through the city. So the commercial corridors or corridor plans project is underway, and we're expecting to publish draft specific plans this summer. We'd originally anticipated 400 units from that, but because of developer interest in the Douglas Sunrise area, we've been able to up that to 850 units of yield from that strategy. Infill intensification would be examining infill sites where the land capacity was based on sort of as-built conditions rather than on capacity or potential-based conditions. And this strategy would be targeting sites that already have multifamily zoning and or medium density and high density residential land use, and increasing the density limitations on those so that they aren't artificially constrained. We were expecting that could yield between 200 to 800 units with a wide range because it really depends on the market conditions for infill, how many we get. And then the opportunity sites are non-residential properties that could be converted to residential property. We do have some interested landowners that we are working with on some proposals, and we were anticipating 600 units from that strategy. So that brings us to the land use policy. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the proposed policy would apply to specific plan amendment projects that either involve conversion of non-residential land to residential uses in certain acreages, or to specific plan amendments modifying residential land. The policy would require an applicant to also increase the density of any high-density residential land that they own or control as part of that specific plan amendment. The policy includes 2 tiers as shown. So the purpose of the 2 tiers is to fairly allocate the increases. So tier 1 is if your existing property is 13 to 22 units to the acre, the policy would ask that it be increased to at least 25 units to the acre. And if the existing density is 23 to 29 units to the acre, we would ask that it be increased by 10% or to at least HDR-13. And the idea here is that if your site's density is already lower, you don't have to add substantially more units than a higher density site, and that a higher density site is limited at not having to exceed that HDR-13. So the break point for these tiers was based on housing element law. There's something called default density in state law, and that basically means that any site with 25 units to the acre or greater in density, we automatically get to credit as a lower income potential site. So the tiers are designed to reach that. So if it's 13 to 22 units to the acre, you need to go to 25, and a 10% increase on an HDR-23 site would result in HDR-25. So the tiers result in all of the affected sites reaching the default density. So we undertook a fair amount of public outreach, starting with the draft policy language included as part of the housing element adoption process. And then further outreach subsequent to housing element adoption was undertaken with the Building Industry Association and major landholders who would be affected by this policy. We did make a number of changes as a result of this outreach, as listed on this slide. So we made sure that the density increases pursuant to the policy will not trigger new or increased population-based requirements like parkland dedication. Doesn't apply to any in-process applications, only to new applications submitted after this policy is adopted. And also doesn't apply to land owned or controlled by the applicant that is outside of the specific plan being amended at the time. Finally, as discussed, this policy is just one strategy among four, and it's entirely possible that other strategies will be more effective than estimated. In fact, we've already seen that with the commercial corridor strategy. So we added a clause stating that if we have sufficient supply of lower income unit capacity, then this policy will no longer apply. So the policy implements a program of the city's adopted housing element, and the Planning Division staff recommend that the Planning Commission recommend that City Council adopt a resolution approving the policy document, which is entitled Guidelines for Specific Plan Amendments Affecting or Proposing Residential Land Use. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Lauren. Commissioners, are there any questions of staff at this time? We'll start with you, Justin.
Thank you.
Commissioner Martin?
I've got one.
Okay.
Just, Lauren, I am just curious, the Builders Association, can you elaborate a little bit in terms of their response? I'm just curious in terms of the effect of this change on the ability for projects to actually somehow happen.
Yeah, what I would say is that we heard very clearly that they're not enthusiastic about this policy by any means, and they would really prefer that we not move forward with it. However, they recognize that this is something we needed to process through our housing element, and it's one of the strategies we need to employ in order to achieve our lower income RENA total. So there were concerns that at certain densities it becomes difficult to build that number of units, especially in this market, and we acknowledge that.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing and the public comment period, and this is an opportunity for anyone in the audience, again, to address the commission on this item. And seeing none, I'll go ahead and close both that and the public hearing and look to the commission for any other comments or a motion.
Can I just make one comment?
Sure.
Based on the question that I just asked, which is, you know, and I recognize we have to have policies that are addressing the requirements that we need to live by. Having a policy is one thing, having actual low-income housing getting built is another, and that's just my concern. I recognize that you guys are doing a great job trying to manage all of this. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, I'd look to the commission for a motion.
I'll make a motion. I do want to note the motion in the staff report lists approve and adopt. I know it's just adopt.
Oh, and you're just recommending they adopt, yeah.
Right, yeah. So recommend City Council adopt a resolution approving the policy document guidelines for specific plan amendments affecting or proposing residential land use.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Can we have roll call, please, Libby?
Yes. Commissioner Covington?
Yes.
Commissioner Hagen-Jost?
Yes.
Vice Chair Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Caparuso?
Yes.
And Chair Jensen?
Yes. So the motion is approved. Looking at the same time frame, July, for this to go to council?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, last on the agenda is commissioner and staff reports. And are there any reports from staff?
Yes, Chair Jensen. The first thing I'll let the commission know is last night the city council acted on an appeal from the Bonnie Knoll project. I don't know if you recall, but this was last August that you took action on this. It was a small automotive repair business on Bonnie Knoll just off of Douglas, where they had proposed roll-up doors, and after deliberation, the commission had stuck with staff's recommendation that they close in those roll-up doors. They appealed the commission's decision, basically that condition of approval specifically. We'd worked with them for 6 or 7 months, and they tried to work on a compromise, some type of alternative design to bring forward to council with the appeal. And ultimately, that new design included an additional 5 feet of landscaping along Bonnie Knoll, so a little bit more depth on Bonnie Knoll, so you get some bigger trees in the frontage. They did want to keep 2 of the roll-up doors the way they are, and the new bay that will be constructed, they proposed having a more decorative glass framed roll-up door, similar to the roll-up doors they already have on the front of their existing business. And after reviewing it, while we still thought that what the commission, and we recommended the commission's position at council last night, but we did think that they did make some progress towards meeting the design guidelines, and that is what council ultimately approved, was this kind of middle ground. So I just wanted to let you know that that project's finally been resolved. It'll be a little bit different than the planning commission's determination, but it'll still provide some additional landscaping and a little bit better aesthetic along the frontage on Bonnie Knoll there. And then the other thing is, we will not have a meeting on the 26th of May at this point in time, and I can't tell you yet for June. We haven't gotten that far. We've had a lot of items at City Council and Planning Commission the last couple months, so I'm not sure where we're at for June. But at least Memorial Day weekend, you're free and clear. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Commission, do you have any questions for staff? Okay, with that, do I have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.